Hey everyone, what's up? Johnny from The Healthy Archer. And today is a big day. Today is where we move away from more savory foods, things that I would normally eat for lunch, and I'm gonna make chocolate chip cookies. So, are these healthy chocolate chip cookies? No. Do I suggest them if you have diabetes? Negatory. Basically, all this is a classic chocolate chip cookie, which is absolutely one of my favorite sweets to eat, my favorite desserts. And I'm doing it all by hand, so I'm not going to use any stand mixer. I'm not going to use any hand mixer either. It all will be done with this old school wooden spoon. Now this is a pretty small one. I use this one because it can really like choke up and torque it, because I've done this probably only 3 times in the past. I am not a baker by any stretch, so this is totally accessible to anybody that wants to try this. Really simple, not many ingredients, and you can do it really quick. I'm going to basically be able to mix this up in what I hope to be about 10 minutes. So let's try it out. I've got everything sort of already pre-measured. So before we start, I do suggest, especially with baking, I think actually everybody that plans on doing any sort of decent amount of cooking in the kitchen should be getting a scale. Doesn't have to be a great scale. This was a cheap, this was like $10 like 10 years ago. I think that, and it's kind of a piece of junk, but it does allow me to measure, and you can get a new one for like 10 or 20 bucks. It's going to last you a long time. All right, so start right away. I think with baking, it's super important to measure with a scale everything first, because if you're using just volume-based measurements like a cup of flour or a cup of sugar, if there's any sort of weight difference in those ingredients, it's going to affect your end product. And with baking, it's all about sort of ratios and how things interact with one another. So if you throw off one of those ingredients, the whole kind of thing can get messed up. Chocolate chip cookies are pretty forgiving, which sort of allows me to do it the way I'm doing it. I've adapted it from I think from online. It's called Quintessential Chocolate Chip Cookies. I think it's on like New York Times website. Thanks, Rob. Yeah, I got my haircut today, actually, buddy. So thanks for noticing, man. And so yeah, I've adapted it from this. I've made a few changes, and let's get started. I've got 1 stick of butter, which is essentially, I think, 115 grams. Yeah, often when you buy butter, it comes in 4 segments. This is exactly 1 segment. It's softened. I've left it out at room temp so it would soften up. I've got 175 grams of chocolate chips. A lot of the recipes call for more of this. I like it a little bit less because I don't want it to be too overwhelming. I've got some, this is raw sugar. So I think it's 180 grams of like raw sugar. Most recipes call for white sugar and brown sugar, but I sort of stuck in the middle and only use that. And we've got just some white, this is organic unbleached white flour. I don't like the bleached flour because precisely that, bleaching something really shouldn't happen too often when it comes to your food, right? So thanks for the fade, noticing the fade there, guys. So yeah, but back to the chocolate chip cookies. All right, so first step. Oh, and also I have an egg, which is sort of condensing here, and a little bit of vanilla extract. So the first thing you do, take this soft butter and just start smashing it up, right? The ingredient calls for creaming it. And this is actually a decent workout, so you're gonna get a nice forearm workout. It's gonna look like Popeye at the end of this. All right, so basically I'm just turning it into a soft, sort of really soft smooth consistency, right? Nice and pretty. Next thing I'm gonna do, I got my method up here, right? So when it comes to baking, I don't really know what I'm doing, I'm not gonna lie. But this is gonna work out, don't worry, it's gonna be exciting. All right, so next ingredient, adding the sugar and the salt. So here, I've got 180 grams of sugar, which is about 1 cup. It was a little under 1 cup with the raw sugar, and a little bit of salt, which is, what was it, 2 grams? Quarter teaspoon of salt. Okay, so I'm gonna add the sugar to this. And I'm gonna mix it until it's lump free. So one thing I've learned is you always wanna start slow, because if you start really quick, everything goes everywhere, right? Especially when you're using something like motorized, like a hand mixer or a stand mixer. So just working away, right? This bowl's actually kind of nice because it has this little rubber thing at the bottom. And that kind of keeps it a little stationary. If you have another bowl that doesn't have a rubberized bottom, you can just take a towel, make it a little bit damp, put it around it, and it will serve as a good, what would I call it? Something to keep the bowl stationary and keep it from moving around. All right, grinding away. All right, that's probably good. It's probably not good, but again, chocolate chip cookies, and seeing as I'm kind of under the gun here to do this live, that's gonna have to do. I think if you're using a white sugar, it would blend up a little bit nicer. So, boom. I'm already starting to get gassed here. All right, it is lump free pretty much. Time to add the egg and the vanilla. So, egg, probably put it in a bowl first, but I'm gonna go old school. Crack on a flat surface, get the egg in there. Aight. Gonna add a little, I think it's a teaspoon of vanilla. I don't think the vanilla matters as much. You can kind of, I'm just gonna eyeball it. I can't even take the lid off of this. Oh man, there we go. Teaspoon. Boom. Gonna mix this up. Start slow. Pick up the pace. I can't pick it up. There we go. Now we can pick up the pace. So now it's kind of looking like, I don't know what this looks like. Some kind of a... Oh, gotta get the RPMs up here, man. Get the sides of the bowls, the side of the bowl. Make sure there's no shit lingering around in there. And basically at this point, we got something like this. Kind of looks like a cornmeal almost, right? Boom. All right, you drink a little water. Egg, vanilla, thumbs up. Add in sifted flour and baking soda. What I have here is 185 grams. I told you before, it's about 1.5 cups, and it's got about 2 grams of baking soda, which is about a half teaspoon. Now, sifting the flour is important because you don't want the flour to be all clumped up, and in your baking, you don't want to have like packets of like powder, right? You want it to be nicely sort of distributed, evenly distributed throughout this mixture so that your cookies will come out nice and consistent. All right, so I'm gonna add this in 3 different phases, mix it up, because if I add it all at once, it's gonna be, I run the risk of it clumping up, all right? So I just got here is just a fine mesh strainer, so you don't need to be too crazy with this. If it's a little bit bigger, this is a pretty fine strainer. Basically, you just don't want big clumps, all right? So I'm eyeballing it. Get about 1/3 of it in there. Give it the old circular motion. Oh. Starting her slow. Starting her slow, starting to pick up the pace. Seems to be a little bit of a common mixing suggestion. All right, so now we're starting to get there. There's the first phase. Phase 2. Circular. Again, I think you know why I'm starting her slow, because otherwise I'm going to end up looking like powder face over here. But then once you kind of get it all sort of incorporated into the nest, you just give her. Just giving her. Oh. Final phase, flour and baking soda. All right, that is the end of that, but I'm going to mix this in nice. Now this is really where you separate the men from the boys, the women from the girls. Oh, this is a grind, but I'm giving her. You want to change her up this is probably going to end up on the ground. Go with the left, right? You always got to practice both hands, right? You can never get to the big leagues. You can never get to the NBA when you keep going up with the right hand, right? All right. Now this is starting to look good. All right, so what consistency are we looking at here? Should probably keep going with this. I think this is really important that you get that flour nicely distributed and incorporated. Now what we got here is pretty much like a thick batter. Yeah, something like that. It kind of, I don't know how to describe it, but video's worth 1,000 words, or maybe 1,000 times 1,000, maybe 1,000,000. If a picture's worth 1,000 words, video's worth an M. All right, so you want to scrape off your sides for sure. If you have a bowl scraper or a spatula, get in for that. Now, chocolate chips. Oh, what I also want to do is get this oven on 350. All right, so I'm not going to see these all out. I'm not going to sit here and make you watch the baking process. I'm going to get them in. I'll follow up this video in the comments with the finished product look, but I'll show you how I assemble it. I got a nice baking pan here. Got some parchment paper as opposed to some of that other stuff. I'd never use wax paper. That stuff smells nasty when you cook it in the oven. I just have one of these. You can do them. I'm gonna do it in probably about 3 different batches. Now I guess you could do it in less if you had more baking trays and whatnot, but what I like to do with each batch is I kind of time it out and see how each batch looks. If I need to lengthen the baking time for the second one or shorten it, I do that. So I kind of use each baking batch as a bit of a barometer for the upcoming batches. Oh, that is thick. Now, I can't really suggest eating this. I'm not gonna lie, I have eaten batter with raw egg in it, but I'm not gonna suggest it for you because you don't want to end up with salmonella. And not that I think that's a likely thing. It's actually completely overstated, but you never know where eggs have been, and I would never want you all to get sick. So don't eat the batter raw. Anyways. All right, and there we have essentially your chocolate chip cookie batter, right? So now, gonna wash the old hands. And it's just basically going to be rolling up into balls. Show you what I mean by that. I mean, if you don't know what rolling it up into balls means, we got a bigger problem, but I'm not trying to question y'all's intelligence. All right, so take a little amount, bring it in between the hands. Boom. Drop it on the, I don't know if you can see that. Drop it on the tray, and I'll probably do 4 and 4. I think I'll do 8 in each batch. Maybe, I don't know what this, how big this is. It's probably about a couple teaspoons, maybe a tablespoon. Now, if you think that the cookies are actually gonna, they don't end up like this. They completely flatten out. So this is just a way for me to sort of estimate the size of each one. It's easier to look at them in a ball and to feel them and to know how much is in each cookie if you want to have a uniform cookie than trying to sort of flatten them out to start out with. So it's funny because one of the first things I've ever made growing up, I told you about the tacos. So tacos was probably one of the first. I hope this is working out because this ain't the way I'm used to these cookies feeling. But yeah, early on, I made chocolate chip cookies. My mom was coming back. I remember she was in Germany. I thought I'd surprise her with my newfound family studies knowledge. I think that was in grade 8. They showed us how to make cookies. So I was making cookies. Oh, the other thing you may want to do with this, maybe is why it's kind of like of this consistency. I think if you refrigerate it for like half an hour, it will sort of fix this. But I'm not about that right now. All right, this is going to work just fine. So, anyways, I was making chocolate chip cookies, and my mom was coming home from Germany, so I thought I'd surprise her. I thought I was a star. Busted out the hand mixer, you know, one of the things that not the stand mixers you see these days, but they're more hand oriented. Actually, this was sort of a stand mixer. It was an old school one because it would pivot on a stand. So just sort of an older school, weaker, but still pretty strong hand mixer. So I got to this point. It was mixing it all together with this hand mixer. I thought I'd go in for to taste some batter, again, which I don't suggest you do for multiple reasons. And my hand got jammed up in the mechanism. It went between the two mixing arms, and I couldn't get it out. The eject button wouldn't work. It actually really hurt because my hand was like just mangled in there. I had like fingers going directions that they shouldn't be going. I started, eventually I started panicking. Call my sister. My sister starts panicking because she tries to eject them. She can't get them ejected. I'm crying. She starts crying because she thinks I'm going to lose my hand or something. I think my hand's going to get like amputated because my fingers are turning blue. Anyways, long story short, after about probably a couple minutes of panicking, we took the whole unit to the emergency room with a towel over top so people wouldn't really see what was going on. Essentially, it was just my hands crammed up in a mixing hand mixer. And we went to the emergency room with a towel over so nobody would see, and I had to sit there and wait in the emergency room with people that had much more serious things, I'm sure. And then basically what happened is when they brought me in, I was screaming too much when they were trying to take my hand out because every time they tried to eject it or pull them, like my hand was like, my fingers were purple. So then they had to inject my hand with like something to freeze my hand so I wouldn't be such a little whiner. And they did that, and then they basically sawed off the things and the arms, and then I got my hand out, and I survived. And I never made cookies until just recently again. I was sort of pretty shy to get back to that, as you can probably imagine. So don't eat the batter because there's raw egg in it, but also don't eat the batter because your hand may get stuck in a mixer, and you may have to go to the emergency room and potentially lose your hands and a lot of dignity along the way. All right, enough jibba jabba. Time for some bacon. There we are, we're preheated. Can't even get this stuff off my hand, so I'm gonna have to lose it. So that's it. I'll show you a little snippet of what these look like going in. Essentially, they're just like that. Okay? So when they're finished, drop them in 350. I believe 12 minutes. Probably should have written that down. Top rack, not bottom rack. I don't want the bottom to get too crispy. I'm going to hit the timer for 12 mins. And at that point, I'm going to take them out and hopefully they'll be nice. I want a little bit of softness in the middle, a little bit of crispiness on top, maybe a little along the sides. But I'm going to try to adjust with each batch till I get that perfect sort of time. And you can use the same tray. What I also do is, if you have a baking rack to cool the cookies, which is essentially it elevates them and allows the air to kind of go and circulate around all of it, that would help. I don't really have maybe I do. No, I don't put a rack in the microwave, but essentially what I do is I just put it on a plate. I'll put them on the plate, and then with each batch I take them off the plate and then I put them in a Tupperware container, and I put some wax paper, or you can use some parchment paper, between them. Once they cool down, I put them in a little container, and they freeze well. And I probably will freeze them because otherwise I'm going to smash too many, and then I'll probably get a little cranky due to the sugar highs and lows. So that's it. I'm going to hit you with some pictures at the end of it all, and hopefully they turn out, and I really want you all to try it and get into some basic baking. It's really one of my own. I only bake two things. I do this, and I do a much more complicated Black Forest cake, and that is way too complicated for this sort of format. All right, so until next time, check out my Facebook page. You can check out my website at healthyarcher.com. And please let me know if you make this and how it turns out for you, as well as any other things that I've shown you in the past. All right, until next time, thanks for checking it out.